John, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Same. So, just to kick it right off the bat, what is the movement journey?
The Movement Journey, that's my brand. That is a mobility, move better, focus online platform on Instagram. I have an app, but the story of the Movement Journey is I'm 36 years old. When I was 23 or 24 in grad school and also a personal trainer, I couldn't touch my toes. I couldn't squat past 90 degrees. I'd have some back pain after lower body exercises. And I just kind of went down a rabbit hole, had an ego check of like, I need to work on my mobility. And it became a passion of mine. And as I learned more, had success with it on my own body and with clients, I started to just showcase it online. And the name, The Movement Journey, just seems so appropriate that that's kind of what I ran with, and it's been an ever evolving thing. But that's like the real quick, what is the movement journey answer, I guess.
Has that always been your Instagram handle?
No, my original Instagram handle was Big Nasty John, so that was just that was just a like funny with friends name. So when I evolved, I had to find something that resonated a little better.
I think it resonates well. How far into your Instagram career, social media career, did you decide to launch the app?
So I think I've been doing Instagram for maybe around 8 years, and after I'm, I'm making guesses here, but after maybe 2 years, people started to ask me for programs or train me online. So I was doing some individual training online, like would do a Zoom call with someone and then give them YouTube videos to do that sort of thing. But I quickly realized because I had a full time in person job as a fitness director that was mostly personal training focused, but it was time consuming enough to where I realized doing personalized programming online just wasn't going to be efficient. So the first thing I did was I made pre-made hip mobility, full body mobility, pistol squats, kind of pre-made programs that you could purchase through Thinkific, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but like a platform where a creator can make a program, embed videos. I started doing that probably about 6 years ago, and then that evolved to an app probably we're probably close to 4 years now.
Okay. What sort of headache was it like to create an app? I've always been curious what that process looks like.
Well, my app is hosted on Tribe Fitness, so I don't do any of the like back end work. Like, if someone were to subscribe to my app, they would download the Tribe Fitness app. And when they log in, though, it would look like the Movement Journey app. Like, everything is logoed and catered to appear as if I developed the app. But because Tribe handles all that stuff, it's actually, they have a really good creator dashboard for filling in videos, writing in cues, just kind of making the programs flow as you want them to. They make it pretty easy. And they've evolved nicely over the past 4 years. Initially, it was like we'd have like a shared Google spreadsheet that we'd kind of just like go back and forth on. But they've really upped their game, and it's still work, but it's much more seamless. And as you understand how to do it, it gets pretty easy.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I've always pictured it being sort of the way that it was when apps first started coming out and you're having to do everything from the ground up and develop your own app. And yeah, I don't know. It just sounds like it would be such a headache. But I have always wanted there to be a better app for physical therapists, uh, just for a home exercise program. Like you
Cool.
go to PT and then your PT sends you home with exercises. Sometimes they're just YouTube links, sometimes it's a printout, but there's nothing in the PT space that I think is good enough for home exercise programs. So I don't know. Maybe one day that'll be something that we do.
Yeah,
But
look at Tribe. I think they have some physical therapists on there, and it's they've done a really nice job making it user friendly.
yeah, okay. I'm going to look into that. But back to your individual movement journey, literally, when you started to notice more mobility changes with you just putting more time and effort into it, what was sort of the catalyst to that? Because I know you used to play soccer. That was kind of your sport, and then you would, strength train and do other sports here and there. But what was sort of the turning point when you started to realize, like, okay, it is time for me to really focus on this and it works?
I think because, so I was going to grad school for a master's of science in sports medicine. I was a personal trainer, I still am a personal trainer, and I knew this was going to be my career. And it just seemed like such a missing. Not only did my mobility suck, like I couldn't touch my toes, I couldn't squat past 90 degrees. And I hated that, but I also was like, man, if I'm going to, work in this space as a career for the rest of my adult life, pretty much, I need to understand mobility better. And I think I kind of got into it at a good time. Like, cool podcasts were just starting to come online. People were kind of just starting to post on social media about mobility. And so I think it was my own body not moving the way I wanted it to, and also just knowing I was going to be a professional in the space, and that was a weak link. I just said, hey, I need to dive into this and figure out if I can figure out how to make my mobility better, I can certainly help anybody else too.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the biggest misconception around mobility that you've encountered over the past 6 years that you've been doing this?
Um, I think, I guess the biggest misconception, like for me, was I would always think flexibility or mobility was all genetics based. And my biggest wake up call was it's not genetics based. It's just, I was just completely half assing my effort. Like I would treat mobility work as like the 3 minutes before I did a hard strength session. And even if you're doing 3 minutes of really good mobility work, if you're not doing it consistently, if you're not doing it with really great attention to detail, you're not going to get much out of it. So I think the biggest people thinking like, oh, I'm just stiff, that's the way it is, don't understand that you need to give mobility work the same attention you would strength work or endurance work to get the most out of it. You certainly don't have to commit that as much time, but you at least need to be consistent. And when you are doing the exercises, give it your all, give it your best effort. Try to execute those drills to the best of your ability. Don't think of it as a warm up or a cool down. Think of it as let's do this session and let's make changes while we're here.
I'm glad you brought up the genetic component of it because I've been thinking a lot on that. And at some point, I want to have, I don't know, a geneticist or somebody that can speak on this with much more professionalism and know their shit, honestly, because I do think that genetics play a portion into how extensible your connective tissue is going to be in a given stretch or mobility drill, on top of like what you went through in puberty years. And this is what's really had my interest recently is I was into gymnastics when I was younger and dance. And so therefore I have very mobile hips, a super mobile thoracic spine, shoulders, but not all my siblings are the same way. And I think part of it is because of what I was putting my body and my joints through at that transitional time. Because now, being 29 years old, I can still like do the splits without having done it for 6 months. I can almost just like drop straight into
Oh,
it.
that's awesome. Yeah.
And yeah, but to me, I'm like, that's not normal. I don't think most people would be able to do that. So I can't decide like what percentage is genetics, what percentage is whatever I was doing when I was younger that just kind of carried over because now I just have that joint extensibility and soft tissue extensibility. I mean, I still do mobility work, but I do think that there was like a lot of carryover from things that I did when I was younger. I don't know if that's something that you've seen.
Oh my gosh, no doubt. Yeah, it's that's almost like the analogy. It's like riding a bike. Like if you learned it at such a young age and you at least do touch on it somewhat frequently or you get close to doing that range of motion every now and then, you're going to keep it. But the splits are an interesting one because I haven't trained them in maybe 6 months to a year, but like maybe I am genetically limited, but it took me when I started my movement journey to get a full front split, so one leg in front, one in back. It probably took me almost 8 years of like not split
I thought
specific
you were going to say
work.
8 months.
No, 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 not split specific work. I eventually, as I got better, evolved to doing split specific sessions, but I was certainly working on hip flexor and hamstring mobility pretty hardcore throughout those 8 years. So I think it is possible for people to get well beyond what they think they're limited with genetically. It's just going to take a ton of work. Like if you're someone who is naturally tight, like think about the tiny weak person who's like, I want to bench 325 and their current max is, you know, 95 pounds. Like it's going to take years of effort and structured training to get there. If you do have big mobility goals, like just be realistic with them and be like, you can probably get pretty close to what your like dream position is or whatever, but it's going to take a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is interesting because with my history of doing dance, doing gymnastics, it was my routine every night before bed. Like, I'm going to stretch. I'm going to have 10, 15 minutes that I'm going to do these things. And then now that I'm married, I've been with the same person for 6 years. It's become part of his routine. And I've seen some crazy changes within his mobility, which was just like not something that he even signed up for, but it just became part of his routine. And
Nice.
it really does speak to the consistency of it, because now every night before we go to bed, he's really good about doing the things that feel good to him or that he feels like he needs to do. And at 31 years old, he's way more mobile than he was at like 21.
Oh, sweet. That's awesome.
Isn't that cool? Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it.
The nighttime routine is an overlooked just life hack. It's easy. You can do it. I'm sure spending time on your phone, just chatting with your spouse, watching television, whatever.
Yes. Oh, the TV is such a hack because I hate sitting and like getting engulfed in the couch. So I'll just get up and be like, okay, I gotta stretch. Uh, but speaking of stretching, I'm curious what's your take on what mobility is? Because I think a lot of patients come in, at least in physical therapy, and they think hamstring stretch, cross body stretch here with the arm, something along the lines of that. But I am of the opinion that mobility is also doing a back squat with a barbell and getting full depth and maybe hanging out there for a little bit. So how do you coach that?
Um, yeah, I would say my definition of mobility would probably be usable or functional range of motion. So, like a mobility drill would require there to be some activity going on. You'd have to stimulate your muscles in some way where you're gaining control of that position. It's not just a passive stretch. There's some activity going on. I mean, the easy example is like if you're stand up right now and grab your knee with both hands and pull it into your chest. That's how much flexibility you have with hip flexion. But just do that standing, no assistance with your hands. Just try to raise your knee up as high as you can. That's how much mobility you have with hip flexion. So I try to distinguish mobility and flexibility. But to your point, yeah, a nice slow deep squat with some weight on your back where you're really trying to own a range of motion is also a mobility drill. You're just building more strength through your mobility. I think the range of what a mobility drill is has definitely, like, by my definition and probably most people's, has grown over the years. And for the better, it kind of like it's making stretching cool. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I
You
guess
are, you are 100%.
there's a lot of things that can be rightfully called a mobility drill. But I think the biggest difference between, at least to me, between mobility and flexibility is for something to be a mobility drill, there's some level of activity going on in your body. You're not just, laying in a straddle stretch on the ground, letting gravity drop your torso forward.
Yep. Yeah, I think another word I use for it in the clinic is mobility under load. So rather than, to your example, a passive straddle stretch, if we're trying to get inner thigh, groin, adductor mobility, we're, in a tall kneeling position, one leg's out to the side and then kettlebells here, and we're doing like a weighted
Yeah.
hip opener, something like that. So it's hard to get there, and then you have to work to stay there. And I think I've seen probably better results over the course of the years giving that kind of stimulus versus like a passive stretch. But I think there's a time and a place for both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A good rule of thumb that someone told me years ago was like, because it's easy to get like have your corner, like, oh, I only do mobility work or I only do flexibility, but passive range of motion is a prerequisite for active range of motion. So, I mean, as you were mentioning the nighttime routine, my wife and I love the stretch at night too, and it's all totally passive stretching. There's nothing active about it, but I think that does translate, especially if you're doing it consistently, that translates well to when you go layer on a touch of strength with movement or strength drills that hit on those ranges of motion.
That's such a good point. Yes, I agree. What would you say to somebody that doesn't have the time to work in the mobility stuff? Because you were saying in the beginning of this podcast, like you need to dedicate just as much time as you would to your other exercises. But for a lot of people, they're probably going to roll their eyes and be like, okay, yeah, I'll give it 4 minutes
Yeah.
and then I'm done.
Well, I mean, we've touched the low hanging fruit of a nighttime routine is awesome. And even though that's at least the one I do, is the stuff you all do just passive stretching?
Yeah, pretty much. Because I don't want to get sweaty.
So, so even if a person is doing that and they're just, let's say they're just doing some general strength and conditioning work too, maybe, you're consistent with a nighttime routine, 5 to 10 minutes of passive stretching, but then the next day, the day after that or whatever, you're doing some just general strength and conditioning, deep squats, push-ups through big ranges of motion. Like as your body starts to open up and then you strength train through those ranges, you're gonna improve your mobility. But I would add to that, like most people can carve out maybe an extra like 10 minutes a few days a week, maybe every other day. And you don't have to commit as much time as you do to like strength work or endurance work, but you have to give it, to get the most out of it, you just have to give it the same attention to detail. Like if you want to get more mobile hamstrings, I'm just going to name some drills I like. Take an elephant walk or a single leg good morning. Do that every other day with just incredible form, really well done. And you're going to make big progress. And if that's 3 to 5 minutes of your day, anyone can sneak that in. I don't care how busy your schedule is, you can find time. So I guess the people that are saying I don't have enough time is don't think you have to overwhelm yourself. Pick some low hanging fruit like nighttime stretching. Everybody's got that downtime. And also just carve out a few minutes to execute a drill or two that you know is going to hit a trouble area in your body and execute it really freaking well. I found with myself and a lot of other people, as your mobility improves and you kind of see the light on giving mobility work, showing that you're giving it really good attention to detail and progress is coming, you kind of get the bug and you're like, well, let me add another 5 minutes. Let me add another 5 minutes. And you just kind of, you sneak it in, you start spending more time on the floor, you start using your range of motion more, stuff like that. It kind of like has a snowball effect on it.
Yeah, you're bought in.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up hamstrings because I think it's so popular right now online to say your hamstrings aren't tight, they're just weak. Maybe they're not tight, they need to be activated.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Um, could be the case for sure. I do think like if I was gonna, if somebody came to me and said, I want to get better hamstring mobility, I would give them some hamstring stretches, but I would also check their hip rotation. Like, how well does your hip disassociate from your pelvis in a rotational capacity? Because I found if someone's hip rotation sucks, like every hip position is going to be limited in some capacity. And so pairing a good hamstring mobility drill with like a hip car or just a really well done sideline hip rotation where you start to, train your hip to disassociate from the pelvis well. I think if you do that before doing a good hamstring drill, I would do an elephant walk for a beginner. That's probably my favorite hamstring drill. You pair hip rotation with a hamstring drill, I think you're just going to get better results.
Yes. Yep. I agree. And I'm just for clarification, elephant walk. I'm picturing a bear crawl, but like you're higher up.
It's, I could demo one if you want me to, but it's like your, most people with tight hamstrings, you'd need a bench in front of you or yoga blocks flipped to the tallest position. And you'd bend over like you're just doing a forward fold. You'd put your hands on the blocks and then you'd isolate one side. So you'd lock out a knee and drive that hip back while softening the other knee. And then you just slowly go side to side there. So you actually end up doing a little bit of nerve flossing too. So I like that for beginners because you stretch the hamstring, you're active, you're tensing the quad on the opposite side, and your people that are chronically tight, like getting that nerve flossing in there can be beneficial too.
Addressing the neural component too. Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of everything. I don't think it has to be the famous thing on the internet right now that's it's not tight, it's just weak, we just need to strengthen. Well, maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe there's some neural tension, maybe there is true muscular tension, but maybe it's also weak and we needed to strengthen the posterior chain too and get the hips rotating.
Yeah.
But cool, elephant walk. I was literally picturing like a bear crawl, but then you're up even higher and you're slowly walking across the
Yeah.
gym. So
That might
maybe I need
that
to
might
YouTube
work
that.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll try it. I'll let you
I'll
know.
send you a video after this.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Uh, so your Instagram following is pretty huge, 499,000 followers. That's a pretty big feat. We're almost a half a million. What do you think contributed to that growth?
I think early on it was one. I think I have a good appropriate name. I think that does resonate. And I think where really started to see growth was I started just posting like mobility drills that I thought were beneficial to me. Like, hey, this is a thoracic spine drill I like for T-spine extension, like just very straightforward content. But as my movement capacity improved and I could do cool stuff like splits, handstands, back bridges, like I started showing that too. And I think that's where I really started to get a nice following. But that was a few years ago. As Instagram's changed, like reels are crazy, all that stuff. I've had some nice success recently with thinking of my content in I want to first and foremost provide instant value for followers. So I've been doing probably the past 8-ish months, I've been doing a lot of carousels that are just movement flows, some theme focused, some just kind of random movement break focused, where it's like, hey, here's 5 to 6 exercises that you can do anywhere, very minimal to no equipment. And I try to make that in every other post. And then outside of that, I will do stuff with brands. But outside of those two things, I will try to make reels that my intention is for the reel to go viral. Like but I think about it in a way that's, well, I think about it in a way that I want it to go viral, but I also want it to have a message that I think is captivating in a way that draws people into my page and are like, I want to learn more about mobility. So a recent one I've had it was just a video of me hanging from a bar, and it said, so you hung from a bar for 2 minutes a day. What changed?
For a month.
For a
What
month,
changed?
yeah.
I saw it.
Very hooky content, but I think stuff like that is very feasible for people to think about doing, and they're drawn in by it. So yeah, and I've had nice success with that sort of layout the last 8 months to a year of thinking like, okay, I'm going to do a carousel post every other post that is very save worthy for people and they can use it. They don't need space. It's just movement flows, or it's like, hey, here's the hip level 1 from my app program. And then outside of that, it's work with a brand or try to post a reel that I think is going to have a really resonating message that has the potential to go viral and thus grow my following.
Well, I mean, I think those are pretty good content pillars. Is the goal for people to also join your app and start working with you on that front too?
Yep, I definitely, not every post, but at least a couple times a week, will subtly sell my app or do an opt-in with like a free squat mobility guide or a free movement flow guide where people opt into that, get on my email list, and then I provide value. Every other Monday I send out a newsletter that's strictly, it does subtly sell my app services, but it always has a movement tip, which is usually a YouTube video accompanied with that. And then also just a training insight I've had personally over the last 2 weeks. And so, yeah, I try to either get people to straight up subscribe to my app or subscribe to my newsletter, be part of my community, and yeah, just provide them value.
Yeah, I think the value added content is really where you can see some pages take off. I think that's when I started to see more of my growth is when, well, one, I was sharing my journey of quitting my PT job and like starting my own thing, but then also showing, hey, this is what you would normally see in physical therapy, but this is what I recommend, or this is a different way to do the exercise. And it's enough to pique people's curiosity, get them to visit the page, save it if they think it's useful. And then that can really, I think, help grow. Although Instagram does, the algorithm, it moves and it bends. So you never really
Totally.
quite know what's going to happen, but that's okay. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay consistent, and if you hit a real big downturn, have self-reflect and really question your content. That's what I've done, and it's if you have to pivot, you got to pivot.
Yep. Yeah. And I think your stuff is great. Is the video you posted, was it on your story? Or, are you doing a handstand and then you're like opening your legs up in the handstand? Was that you? I think you were facing away
Yeah,
from
that
the
was
camera.
a story post today.
That's so impressive.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's wild. How long can you hold a handstand for?
60 seconds easily, if not a little longer.
How long did it take you to build up to that?
Probably 2 years to get a
Yeah.
60-second, a straight line, holding still, 60-second handstand.
That is wild. I'm impressed. I saw the video and I thought this was one of the people that you were training. I didn't realize that that was you.
No, yeah, that was me. No, actually, that story post was supposed to be funny because I
You said
rolled
I'm
my
staying off my
ankle.
foot. Yeah.
Yeah, I rolled my ankle trail running the other day, and so that was my I'm elevating my foot.
I mean, it's whatever works. So you're trail running, you're cycling now that you live in North Carolina, you're in the mountains. Has your fitness routine changed over the past, I guess, let's say 8, 9 months since you moved? Time for a quick little ad break so I can talk about my one and only most favorite application when it comes to business, the Jane app. Jane is a clinical management software, and I like to call it a one stop shop for everything you need to get your clinic started. And this doesn't just apply to physical therapists. Anybody that is in the patient care realm can use the Jane app and transform their business with it, just like I did. I use Jane on a daily, maybe I would even say hourly basis, from scheduling my patients, processing payments, running reports, reaching out to patients, sending automated text reminders and email reminders about appointments, taking virtual rehab coaching and mentoring calls through the Jane app, and honestly, so much more. Jane is there for you. They do everything with you, and it feels like I have a coworker with me when I'm using Jane every day. Lucky for you listeners, I now can give you a 2-month grace period with my code RonniePT2MO. That's all caps RONIPT number 2 capital M capital O.
Yep, definitely. So probably up until that point, I was still like higher level mobility goals were still a part of my practice, like back bridges, front splits, middle splits, pancakes, uh, weird squats like dragon squats, and advanced pistol versions. Like I was doing a lot of that stuff actively in my practice. And if anyone's followed me for a while, they know that kind of used to be my shtick, was like crazy movements like that. But I've been really into cycling the last like 3 years, and been a runner for a while, and always been intrigued by trail running. And my wife and I moved to the North Carolina mountains, so she's also a triathlete, so it's a great training ground for that too. But since we moved here, I've really dove in more into those modalities, but I still do strength training and mobility work. It's just a little more catered to help me do those two other things better. So I definitely still do plenty of mobility work. It's just nothing super high level. It's more, I do more mobility flow stuff. Like 3 or 4 times a week, I'll do what someone might think of as yoga-y type movement flows. But I still do practice handstands, and at least once a week I'll touch on some like really end range hip flexor, hamstring, adductor. So I'm kind of like, I'm flirting with the splits, but I'm not actually, I'm not where I was a few months ago.
I mean, don't lose it though, because that would be a really cool party trick. You're like 60 years old and you can still drop into the
Yeah.
splits.
I think that's kind of what it is. I don't want to lose too much. Like I always want to have a pretty high base of it. So
Yeah, like I want to know the percent of American men that can do the splits. Probably like 0.001%. So
yes,
stay
probably.
up there. Stay
Yeah.
in the 0.001 percenters. But that's pretty cool. I like how things have changed. I'm curious, you said you were the athletic director or fitness director somewhere first starting out.
Yep.
Okay,
Um,
what do your days look like now? Are you still working a full-time job in that regard and then doing these things on the side, or are you full-blown movement journey?
Full blown movement journey now. I'm not. I left my full time job in March, and I've been there 10 years.
Congratulations.
Yep. Thanks. I've been there 10 years. Really loved it. I was one of the lucky. I feel like everybody who like branches off, starts an online thing is like, I left my crappy job. I actually liked my job a lot, so I had a really. It was a really nice. I mean, that's just such a nice vibe to be able to be building your own thing and like your in person job. And so I built the movement journey to a point where it just felt like it's now or never. And we also wanted a change of scenery. So working online totally helps with that. So,
Mhm.
yep.
Okay, so how do you support yourself with the movement journey? You mentioned the brand deals, the app. Is that like kind of the main two things that you're focused on? I know you have another third thing that we're going to touch on in a second. So you also have your squat seat.
Yep. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. People subscribing to my app, clients on there, working with brands that I like, either doing whitelisting ads for them, showcasing their products on my page. And then, yeah, I recently co-founded a company, the Squat Seat, with a partner of mine. That's not lucrative yet, but I have no doubt it will be.
I think it will be. Talk a little bit about that. It looks cool.
So I don't know if we have video, but I'll just show
Yeah,
it
we'll have
for
video.
the. So it is, the squat seat is probably exactly what you think it is. It is a seat meant to mimic the positions of a deep squat. And to me, I'm really passionate about that because early on in my movement journey, I had a bunch of, outside of just committing to mobility work, I really kind of looked at my lifestyle as a whole and thought, man, I spend way too much time sitting. I'm wearing too tight of shoes. I'm not spending time on the floor, all these things. And part of that was I started, as my mobility improved and I could hang out in a deep squat, I started doing it more and more. And I saw that as just easy, low hanging fruit for improving my mobility. And so the squat seat makes sitting in a deep squat more approachable to people who maybe their strength to get up and down is limited or their mobility is limited. And it's even people with great mobility, you get to spend more time in that position. And so you just get to touch on it and your ability to maintain your mobility from here, ideally till the end of your life, is going to be much easier to do. And so that's kind of the goal of the squat seat, is to provide a better resting option for people. And I love it. I've had one myself for probably 4 or 5 months, and I spend easily on a working day, I'm in it at least 3 hours, if not 4 hours, and it's sweet. It's if
So I'm picturing like I'm sitting in a deep squat, my bottom is supported, now my hips are open, and then I have a desk that can lower, but then it's also forcing me to be a little more erect through my low
yes,
back,
totally.
thoracic spine, because that just promotes good posture when you're opened up like that. Is that what you've found?
Yep, definitely. And so people, it's a lightweight tool. It's comfortable. People can use it anywhere in their house. So, I mean, we really hope to. Our big goal is to get it in schools at some point because, kind of to what you were saying earlier, your gymnastics journey, how you kind of trained your mobility and maintain it at a younger age. I truly believe that if kids, have options like this to sit in throughout a young age rather than sitting in traditional chairs, like their future mobility is going to be so much better for opting for those options rather than sitting in a traditional chair. So our big goal as we grow is to get into schools and hopefully provide younger people with better sitting options 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, when they're not having to get joint replacements, they're just generally more active and they're able to live a better life. Yeah.
I like it. That's a good long-term goal. It makes me think of, I did a study abroad my sophomore year of college. We went to Beijing, China, and I remember being on the bus and stopping at the bus station, and everybody that was from there was just sat at the bus station in a deep squat, or they're on the
Nice.
corner playing cards and they're all sitting in a deep squat. And even the toilets actually are more so just holes in the ground. And in order to use it, you must be able to get into a deep squat. There would
Yes,
be,
exactly.
you'd walk into like a public place like the Great Wall of China. We go there and there's all these public restrooms. And then there's like one, and they would call it the American toilet. And it was sat up high because none of the Americans could get low to the ground. My point is, I think it's really a natural position for the human to be in. But when you just spend your whole life not being in that position, then it's a barrier. So I like what you're doing. I think that's cool. And I think the school goal is, that's good. It's altruistic of you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I mean your joints are meant to get in these ranges of motion. We just don't spend time in them, so we lose it and down the road you have to get a hip replaced, a knee replaced, or your mobility is just limited. And I truly think if you move better, you can live more, and moving better is like the joy of life. Like that's how you do fun stuff in life, so why not have some tools that make it easier to move better?
100%. And if someone's looking to try the squat seat, but they're like, oh, I can't get that low, are there tiered levels to it? Can you make it higher, lower?
Yep, so it's our current model does come in half, and so it's like I'm 5'11", just for reference, I'm 5'11", and I sit in the highest option. I can sit in the lowest option, but I can spend way more time in the higher option. The lower option would be great for just people that have an excellent deep squat, children, maybe shorter women. It'd be really good for them. But even let's say you're taller or your mobility is limited, there's easy ways to get down in this. The most easiest way is back it up, put it right in front of your couch, sit on the couch or a chair, slowly slide off the chair or couch using your hands to just lower yourself down in it. And then when you set up in it, have your feet as close to you as you can. But if that's painful at all and your knee, hip just feels uncomfortable, just slide your feet out so you open up knee angle, hip angle, spend time in a position that's doable, but you can tell it's kind of stretching stuff out a little bit. And then when you need to get out of it, just use the couch to get back out. A door frame works really well too to kind of guide yourself up and down. So it's a very scalable position. And yeah, it's if anyone goes to our website and looks at it and is scared by it, don't worry. It's very doable. And if you think your mobility is limited or you're too old for it or something, I guarantee there's a way for you to get in it and set up in it where you're going to get a lot of long-term value for your mobility.
I think it's smart also because when I'm working with patients that I think could benefit from spending more time in that deep squat, right now, the only way that I'm really telling them to do it, if they can't just sit there and do the deep squat like the people on the side of the road, they're, on they're on a rig and they're inching themselves down and they're kind of like leaning back, holding on, and they have to have really good grip strength, and then they're trying to like inch their way into the deep squat, and then you can't really hold it for that long because that's like a full body workout basically. So I like that this is a nice passive, somewhat active stretching way
Yeah.
to get past that and spend more time in it. So I think it's really cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you will as you're sitting in it. Like the closer you get your feet to you, so the more your position really replicates a deep squat, the more active you'll feel your lower body. It won't be anything close to like truly resting in a squat, but you will feel like, oh, my body's kind of engaged here. Like it's much different than just kind of slacking in a chair. And the big value is even if you're assisting yourself up and down, you're going to have to get up and down. And that's where you build the mobility. So if somebody gets in this 5-6 times a day, even if it's just for a couple minutes each time, that's 5 or 6 times a day. They went through a really deep squat position. Over time, that gets easier and easier and easier. And it's the snowball effect of progress.
Yeah. And I mean, the goal is to get it into schools, but I'm also thinking of people like my parents who spend less and less time getting up and down from the floor. And then one of
Yeah.
the leading causes of prolonged hospitalizations and eventual death is falls and then people's inability to get up off the ground. So think of the good that it could do for those in, their 60s and 70s if they're willing.
Definitely. Yep. My parents were a touch skeptical about it, but they're huge fans now, and they're fairly active mid 60s, and they see just doing it a couple times, they're like, oh, I get it. Like it's just enough of a challenge, but they can see that, okay, if I do this consistently, it's gonna help out my mobility in a very positive way for longevity.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking of my little nieces that are on the floor, and like the grandparent wants to be able to get down to that level and also be in a somewhat comfortable position. Boom, you got your squat seat.
Versatile piece of equipment.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You also mentioned brand deals, working with brands that you like to work with. Do you have a specific one that's been your favorite to work with?
Of the brands I work with now, let's see.
And this isn't like a plug. I'm just curious, like who you've enjoyed working with in the past.
Yeah, I really like this brand called Supco that I'm working with now, and I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
I don't think so.
they're an independent, I guess I'll call them an independent group or organization that they rate and review supplements based on like quality of ingredients, brand integrity. Like they really deep dive into what's actually in the supplement. Is it actually what you're saying it is? Because it's kind of, the supplement industry is very wild west. Like there's a lot of, foreign made products that are shipped in, like it'll be a creatine product, and they've studied a bunch of stuff where they're like, there's not even any creatine actually in this product.
No.
And so they're trying to break down the barriers of like, we want to, they're not quite there yet, but they want to eventually study every supplement that's on the market and really give real value to the consumer of, hey, this is the good stuff, that's the garbage basically. And so I've been working with them for a few months, and I just love their mission. They don't work on a brand deals thing. They're totally independently funded. I just think they're doing really cool things in the supplement space and making it easy for any consumer of a supplement to weed out the noise and find the good stuff.
Oh, I love that, especially because there is so much noise and it seems like everybody starts a supplement company and you can pretty much slap anything on the label and say that it's whatever you want to claim that it is,
Yeah,
when it's really not.
it's
There's a lot of noise.
yeah, it's really crazy how easy it is to start a supplement company and sell stuff without any like verification of what's in that supplement.
Exactly. Yep. Which is why when it comes to working with supplement companies, I've really not, I don't think I've actually done it. I posted a post the other day just about like my postpartum nutrition and what I've been eating. And someone was like, how many of these are paid partnerships? And I said, oh, actually none. Like these are just brands that I actually think are what they say they are. But I don't ever do any sponsored work with them yet, just because I don't know, it can be a little shady.
Yeah, I do work with Thorn, and they're a great,
Thorn's the one that I use.
they're
Yeah.
very highly rated, and I found them organically through Supco and started just using their products because of their high rating on Supco. And through that and sharing some stuff organically, they've reached out to me, and it's been a nice partnership.
Yes. Yeah, I have a Thorn like online dispensary because I do think that their stuff is great just after the call that I had with them. But I still don't, I think Thorn and Momentous are probably the top two
Yeah,
ones
they're
that
the
I think.
top of companies that sell wide ranges of products. Those are the top two for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That's cool. I'm glad we're on the same page. What is next for the movement journey? I mean, I know you kind of have just already been through a lot of change with the move and launching a product, but do you have anything else cooking in the books?
I'm always interested in adding things to my app as I feel like people kind of naturally call for it. But I mean, yeah, I've left a full-time job of 10 years in March, and I've kind of just been enjoying like more free time and getting to lean into gravel cycling, trail running, having less commitments. And so I'm waiting. The squat seat is a big part of my week week these days, but I kind of, this might sound like cliche, but I just kind of like take things as they come, and when I see doors open, I step through them. So I don't have any like huge goals, but I'm enjoying just leaning into things that I'm passionate about from a my own physical activity standpoint now.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now that you're in a whole different terrain, you can explore those avenues in terms of just what your body's capable of doing in these different sports. Are you also a triathlete or not so much?
I'm not. I'm not a very good swimmer, so maybe at some point. But I also like being in the woods.
Yeah, hence the mountain biking, trail running, etc. All right. Well, very cool. Last thing that I like to ask guests before we close up, if you could go back to your undergrad, University of Georgia self studying, you said exercise physiology?
Exercise and sports science.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
same thing.
What advice would you give yourself now at 36?
I would probably say that's a good question. I would say this is something, a wake up call I kind of had in that grad school time when I started leaning into mobility is be the coolest person you know. And from that, I mean just lean into the things that interest you. Like, I think when I was an undergrad, I was very like, oh, what are my friends doing fitness wise? I'll just do that too. And I think even though I might have had subtly different interests or been curious about other things because it wasn't mainstream, I didn't lean into it. But now I'm very much like, oh, if I think it's cool, I don't care if anyone else is doing it. I want to know more about it. Let me go figure it out and find out more about it. So, and I think becoming the coolest person you know kind of sums that up.
Right, because it's like I'm the coolest person I know because I think it's all really cool.
Yes, totally.
Oh, I love that. Well, that was a pretty good way to finish it out. Thank you so much for coming on. If people are looking for more information about the squat seat, is that something that I can link? Is it available yet?
Yep, it's the squat seat is the website, and that's the Instagram page. I think the Instagram page is just squat seat. Actually, I should know that.
Quick check.
Actually, the Instagram page is the squat seat, and the website is shop squat seat.
Chop squat
Um,
seat. Okay,
yeah,
cool. And I'll link those in the show notes too for people that are interested, along with your profiles and things if you guys want to learn more about Mr. John Lindsay. And yeah, just thank you again for coming on and sharing all your knowledge.
thank you for having me. Much appreciated. That was awesome conversation.
Awesome.